I think having vegetable gardens in containers is really great, whether it's because you're just limited on ground space where you live or because you don't want to deal with your native soil. Whatever the reason, containers are just really convenient and they're great to grow in. And I've been doing it for years in all different kinds of containers. But there are a couple issues that are specific to growing in containers that you aren't going to run into with like raised beds or in ground gardens. So the first thing is that because you have to use potting mix and it's like a lighter soil, and because containers typically are not sitting on the ground, so you're watering them, the water is flowing through pretty quickly. That means that the nutrients are going to leach out of that container a lot more quickly than those in-ground gardens. And so something that's really important as you're amending your soil is you need to add those nutrients back in. The other issue that you're going to run into with containers is the soil is going to become a lot more compacted and dense very quickly. And so that is going to be another issue that you have to deal with as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through just with your hands. You can use a tool if that's easier for you, but you're going to go through and just manually kind of loosen up and churn up your soil. Now, I've already actually done it for this one, so I don't have a great example of it, but what you will likely find is that around the edges of that container in particular, the soil is really compacted and kind of hard to get through. And the reason why it's so important that you are loosening that up is if you think about plant roots, which are very fragile but very important, and you want plants to establish a really robust root system for that plant to be as healthy as it can be. Well, when you have plants in compacted soil, those roots of that plant, it's going to be really hard for them to get through any soil that is super dense or super compacted. And so that's why it's really important to go through and do that. So first thing you're going to do is go through that container. If it's a smaller container like a pot, you could even dump it out and do it that way. Something that you might find as you're going through is going to be root balls. And I have some examples here from my containers that I've already amended. So you're going to have root balls that look like this in your soil. You want to make sure to get these out because, again, if you think about a plant's roots trying to get through this already compacted, dense root ball, it's going to be really hard. So you're going to find root balls. You also might find some presents from the squirrels. I always find nuts and different things that they've put in there. So as you're going through and loosening up that soil, and I really get down at least halfway into my container, I try to get down as far as possible, but you're just going to loosen that and kind of churn it up. So the next thing you're going to do after you loosen up that soil is you're going to want to put back into the soil some of the really good things that it needs for those plants to thrive. Now, for me, a lot of times at the end of the growing season as I'm preparing for the next one, the soil in my container has already kind of gone down a little bit. But if your container is still completely full of old soil, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take some of it out. So every year, I replace around probably a fourth to a third of the soil in the container. You don't have to do all of it, and you don't want to do all of it, but I would say at least a fourth is probably a good amount, and that's usually around what I do. And so if your container is full and you don't have anything that you can add because of that, just take it out, find another place in your yard where you can put it. Or if you get new containers that you're filling up this year, you can put it in some of those. So once you've taken that soil out, now you need to put something back in. Potting mix, a compost, and then some fertilizers. And so first let's talk about the potting mix. So you can buy your own bagged potting mix. That is totally fine. I personally really like the Fertilome brand. So this is something that I will use in my garden if I don't want to make my own. And potting mix in particular is what you want to buy for containers. You don't want to buy garden soil. You don't want to buy topsoil. Those are too dense. You need something that's going to be light because of just the way that the plants are growing in that container. Potting soil, or potting mix rather, has just a few ingredients in it. So like this one on the ingredients list, it has peat moss, it has perlite, and then it has lime. And it has lime because peat moss is a little bit acidic, and so you have to add some lime to take that acidity down. So you can totally use potting mix, and it's just really fluffy and light. So that's one option. If you don't want to buy the bag, you can also make your own. I personally use coco coir instead of peat moss. They do really the same thing. Coco coir is just a little more sustainable, and I like that it doesn't require you to add lime. It's not as acidic as the peat moss, and so you can buy coco coir bricks. You hydrate them. You would add perlite to it, and then it really looks very similar to the potting mix that I just showed you. The next thing you're going to want to add is some compost. And compost is really actually the most important thing that you can put in a garden. You don't want to put too much because too much can harm your plants, but having a good amount of compost in there is really important. That's how you add in those nutrients, and it does a lot of other great things. And so you're going to want to put compost in. I actually just ran out. I'm going to go to the store and get some, but I use a mushroom compost. There's a lot of different types of compost. So this is not the only option, but this is just what I have used over the years that I really like. So I will use a mushroom compost. So assuming I had some, I would fill the rest of this with that compost, and then I'm going to mix it all in. So you're going to do a second time of kind of churning that soil up, mixing it all in. Another thing that's really good to add to your containers is going to be worm castings. And this is actually worm poop, but it's really high in nutrients. It really improves the quality of the soil. There's just so many good reasons for why you should add worm castings to a vegetable garden. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and it has made a significant difference in the health of my plants. So I really cannot recommend it enough. So I will also usually add some of that in as well. And again, not too much, but just, kind of the rest of this level of this container, I would do probably 2/3 compost, maybe 1/3 of the worm casting. So then you're going to want to, like I said, mix all that in. And then the last thing you're going to want to do before you plant anything is add in a fertilizer. I personally love this Jumpstart fertilizer. It's a granular fertilizer, which is what you want to add at this stage, which means that it's going to kind of be a powder. And this is a slow release. And so what that means is that you're going to put it in the soil now, but it's going to feed your plants for, weeks and weeks to come. So every time you water, more of those nutrients will get taken up by whatever you have planted in here. So you're going to want to add that as well. And then you'll be good to go and plant whatever you're going to put in there, whether it's seedlings or you're direct sowing some seeds. But like I said, it's just really important. The takeaway here is don't just plant directly into soil from last year. You always want to make sure you're amending it